We're listening to DFC Radio.
Oh, hey there, gentle listeners. This is your buddy, Herb the Wizard, and I'll be ready in just a minute. Just let me find it on the dial.
Felix the cat, the wonderful, wonderful cat. Whenever he gets in a fix, he reaches into his bag of tricks. Felix the cat, the wonderful, wonderful cat. You laugh so much your sides will ache, your heart will go pit-a-pat. Watching Felix, the wonderful cat.
Well, there we go. This is it. Get ready. We're going to start the show. Well, hi there, everybody, and welcome to this, 72nd episode of the Grow with Grubby Cup Show. I'm awful glad you tuned in. And now it's time to listen to a little bit of the wonderful and delightful Kelly Erickson, currently playing with Teaser.
We got some seeds to grow, he'll keep you in the know. Variety to claim, so baby, what's his name? He's a man to know. He'll make your garden grow. Grubby Cup's his name. He's the man who make a change.
Hello there, gentle listeners. This is your roving bard, Leaf Malone, reporting on the Grow with Grubby Cup show, brought to you by DFZ Radio at dfzradio.com. And here they are, the buds of the circle table. Oh, see, it is I, Sancho Banza. Good evening. I'm Alfred the Dungeon Keeper. Hi there, friends. This is the Irreverent Joe. And I'm Herb the Wizard. Psst, it's me, Vinny the Viper, the Sheriff of Riding Puck. And I am your host, the Green Knight, Grubby Cup Stash. Thank you for joining us here on the Grow with Grubby Cup show. Brought to you by the good folks over at DFZ Radio at dfzradio.com. Well, to start things off, let's start off by the community events from grubbycup.com. All right, Grubby. Well, what's going on? Well, on 6/20 in Maine, Urban Garden Center in Brewer is having a Customer Appreciation Day. Is 6/20 UPGC Growers Cup and Conference is going on, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that here in a moment. But first, on 7/11 in North Carolina, American Beauty and Garden Center is having their vendor day. American Beauty Garden Center also carries Grubby Cups potting mix, so if you're in the area, swing on by, get yourself a bag, tell them Grubby sent you. On 7/26 in California, the Los Angeles Convention Center will be having the Maximum Yield Indoor Garden Expo. And on 9/12 in Maine, the Urban Garden Center in Topsham will be having their Customer Appreciation Day. If you're a hydro shop and you're having a Customer Appreciation Day, drop me a line, let me know. I'd love to announce it on the air. Now, to come back a little bit to the Upper Peninsula Garden Center Growers Cup and Conference. It's going on this Saturday. I will be leaving shortly this week so I can make it over there in time. I will be emceeing the event this year, and I'm really looking forward to it. One of the reasons I'm looking forward to it is apparently they've got weather in the 70s right now. And over here at the Castle of Mancha, it's been hitting triple digits on a regular basis. So I could really use the cooler weather. That'll be nice. The event will be taking place this Saturday at Hooligans Park. That sounds promising. 191 North Menza Lane in Daggett, Michigan. That's in the Upper Peninsula. So it's above the bridge, not down with the trolls. Well, gee, Grubby, that sounds cool. Who else is going to be there? Well, we're going to have folks there from Da Vape Escape, from Grassroots University, from the Detroit Nutrient Company, from IDK Farms, and from Nuggies Tobacco Shack. So we expect it to be a good time. I expect it to be a good time. I expect to have a good time. I will be emceeing the event, and if you're going to be around the Upper Peninsula area, please get a hold of the folks over at UPGC for details, or go to upgrowerscup.com for more information. Oh, gee, Grubby, that sounds like a cool time. Yeah, and I've been told that one of the things I must do while I'm in the Upper Peninsula is find a pasty and have it with gravy. It's a meat and in bread, in a pocket bread kind of thing, turnover type thing. I don't know what it is. Whatever it is, I want to have one while I'm there. I really like sampling local cuisine, particularly anything that smacks of peasant food. And just to be forewarned, I'm going to take my trusty H4n recording mic in that. So hopefully next week's show will at least have clips from the event. So make sure to tune in next week. Hello there, Mr. and Mrs. Generator and all the ships at sea. Now it's time for... The Grubby Cup is a portion of our program where we take questions from you, the general listeners, and read them here on air. Please keep in mind that plant that shall not be named shall continue not to be named, so please don't include it in your letters. Signor Grubby Cup! Signor Grubby! Well, hey, Sancho, what is it?
Well, I was in the village, and they said that you said that people should plant a lot of flowers.
Well, flowers and flowering plants, yeah. I think that's a very nice thing.
Well, why?
Well, because a lot of the flowering plants that don't self-pollinate use insects to pollinate themselves, to pollinate. And these insects are known as pollinators, oddly enough. And we really need to start taking care of our pollinator population.
Oh, you mean pollinators like bees? I like bees. They make honey.
That's right, and there's been real problems with bee populations in this country right now. And part of what may be helpful for that is if the bees have access to a variety of plants and not just a single plant that they're forced to pollinate, and that the wild population has a chance to recover a little bit.
Oh, I see.
Well, gee whiz, Grubby, I like honey. Oh, you're going to use honey and make a very special kind of magical potion. Well, yeah, that's true. For those of you that have heard the yeast hydroponics, where we talk about making ginger ale, you can use a very similar process to make a honey wine or a mead. Now, of course, you should only try this if you're over 21 and it's legal in your area. And pretty much if you're not over 21 and making wine at home is legal in your area, you probably shouldn't be listening to this show. But to give kind of a brief overview, you make it very similar to how you make ginger ale. I put in a cup of honey and a cup of sugar into some water, and then put that on the stove and bring that up to temperature. So, heat that up so that the sugar and the honey dissolve into the sugar well, because that makes it a lot easier to mix in and deal with. And then I'll put that into my 3-liter container, or if you're making a bigger batch, into a carboy or whatever. And this is going to be your fermenting chamber. So then you'll add in as much other water as needed to fill up the container, leave a little bit of head space, a little room for the yeast and that the stuff on the top to go, and put an airlock on top of it. And the reason that you put an airlock on this where you didn't put an airlock on the ginger ale is that with the ginger ale, we wanted the carbon dioxide to pressurize the container and carbonate the beverage. Oh, yeah, Grubby, because that's what makes it give it the fizzies, and I like the fizzies. In the honey wine, or any time that you're making an alcoholic beverage out of it, what you're going to do is you'll use an airlock so that CO2 can escape, but it still keeps it sterile, so that basically gas can escape through the airlock, but gas and contaminants can't back through the other way. And that works simply because the pressure inside the bottle is higher than the pressure outside the bottle, so that creates a push. So it'll push stuff out, but unless something traumatic happens and atmospheric pressure from outside the bottle goes up sharply, then stuff won't push back through the other way. Oh, gee, Grubby, that makes sense. Sort of. Whatever. I just want to get your magical potion part. Because you have the airlock in place in that, it can then ferment for a lot longer, and you don't have to worry about blowing up the bottle. Like I said, when you're making ginger ale in that, you're pressurizing it with the CO2, which is cool and nice, but then you still have to be worried about, leaving it shut for too long, because it'll break the bottle. Pretty spectacularly, I may add. And that's another reason why when you're making the ginger ale in that, I suggest using a plastic bottle. Since you're not pressurizing it with mead, you can use a glass bottle, which is nice for sterility and all that. And like I said, since you're not going to have pressure building up, you don't have to worry about creating a bottle bomb and having them explode. Well, gee, that's cool, Grubby. Because when stuff explodes, it can make a mess. And if it's got a little glass charge, it'll be dangerous. So that's nice. And one of the things that I like about it is it's really simple. If you're going to try it at home, don't just go off this couple minute explanation. You want to look it up in that. But it really is a lot easier than many people think. And one nice thing about it is not only is it much, is it much more cost effective to do it yourself by and large than to buy it commercially, but also you get the satisfaction of being able to enjoy something that you've made yourself. And you can adjust things like how sweet you like it. If you put in a lot of extra sugar, what'll happen is that the yeast will raise up the alcohol content until it kills itself, basically, and you're left with a sweet beverage with a relatively, high-ish alcohol content for a fermented beverage. If, on the other hand, you don't put as much sugar in it, what'll happen is that the yeast will eat up all the sugar and then starve to death. So there you'll wind up with a mead that isn't sweet because the yeast ate all the sugar, and also doesn't have as much of an alcohol content to it because there wasn't enough sugar to reach its maximum potential. And again, as we've already discussed, another alternative you can do is simply stop the fermentation early, or at least slow it down dramatically by sticking it in the refrigerator, and winding up with a beverage that doesn't have very much to negligible alcohol in it at all. So do it the way that you want to do it, and wind up with the product that you want to do. You don't just have to pick from the selection that you find at the store. It's one nice thing about doing stuff at home. Oh, yeah, Grubby, one thing I like about making my own magical potions is I can make them just the way I want to make them, so they're just the way I want to enjoy them. I can make them strong, or I can make them not so strong, or I can play around with it and try different things, and I just, it's an entertaining thing to do. If you like mixing potions, I highly suggest you giving it a shot. And now for a few words from our sponsors. The Grow with Grubby Cup show is brought to you in part by the Upper Peninsula Garden Center's Growers Cup and Conference this Saturday. I'm really looking forward to this. I'm really hoping I have a good time. I've heard a lot of nice things about some of the produce that they make in the area, and I'm looking forward to trying some and sampling some. And like I said previously, I gotta try me a pasty. You're listening to the Grow with Grubby Cup show. I'm your host, Grubby Cup Stash. You're listening to us on dfzradio.com.
You're listening to dfzradio.com.
Botanicare is proud to introduce a revolutionary 3-part nutrient system that is the culmination of over 15 years of research and development. The Kind Plant Nutrient System. Designed by leading plant physiologists, this is the most versatile, effective, yet easy-to-use plant nutrient system ever created. It all starts with Kind Base. Kind Base contains nitrogen and calcium, but no trace minerals, magnesium, or sulfur. By placing those nutrients in the Grow and Bloom formulas, you have greater control over how your plants grow in your medium of choice. Using coco coir or RO water, just add more base to increase calcium levels. Growing in clay pebbles or rock wool, then just reduce the amount of base to ensure the proper calcium level. It's that easy. Kind Grow contains trace minerals and a proprietary blend of all natural ingredients to help maximize root growth, reduce internodal spacing, and create a lush canopy. Kind Bloom was formulated with the optimum phosphorus to potassium ratio. Your plants will have healthy branch and stalk development, accelerated flower set, and increased yields. Kind Bloom also contains magnesium to help improve photosynthetic efficiency, which is critical in accelerated growth environments. To put it more simply, Botanicare's Kind Nutrient System is the only nutrient system that is fully customizable to your kind of plants and medium. Botanicare Kind Base, Grow, and Bloom. Fully customizable. Any plant, any medium. For more information, go to botanicare.com. Botanicare Kind. Make it your kind.
We're listening to DFZ Radio.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Grow with Grubby Cup show. I'm your host, Grubby Cup Stash. You're listening to us on the DFZ Radio Network at dfzradio.com. Hello, gentle listeners and all the ships at sea. This is your wandering bard, Leaf Malone. And now it's time for Meals and Munchies. Well, gee whiz, your Grubby Cup, I'm feeling kind of hungry. So what are we making today? Well, today Alfred's going to come by and give us some tips on meat grinding. Good evening. This is Alfred the Dungeon Keeper. I am here today in part to give my review for the LFIC Universal Food Chopper number 1. It is a manual meat grinder. This particular unit is over 100 years old. I believe it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 117, and it has seen a lot of use over the years, but is still a very functional piece of equipment. Grubby, just how old is Alfred? I don't know. Grinding your own meat can be a very satisfying experience. It is a time-honored tradition that has some benefits to it. For one thing, if you cut and grind your own meat, you know what the condition of the meat was when you started. When you buy it pre-ground, you get whatever they put into it. When you grind your own, you get what you put into it. Gee, Grubby, knowing Alfred, I don't know if that's a safer thing or not. Shh, hush up, Herb. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with the device, let me describe its function. It has an opening at the top where you insert the flesh. There is a hand crank, and as you turn the crank, a worm screw forces the meat through a grate, which is then exposed to a rotating blade, which grinds the flesh. It is how hamburger is made. It is also often used in the preparation of sausages. A budget-minded benefit to this is that, odd as it seems, if you look closely, sometimes you can get something like chuck steak or a chuck roast on sale for less than the price of hamburger. The price of hamburger's gone up a lot in the past few years. So sometimes you can get, the materials for less than the pre-ground, traditionally pretty close to the bottom of the barrel ground beef. The benefits to grinding it yourself include the ability to modify the amount of fat that you put in the grinder, and the ability to include not only beef, but things like peppers and seasonings, or pork, or lamb, or whatever other sorts of meat may strike your fancy.
Oh, gee, Grubby, I don't know if I want to know what kind of meat awful fancies you put in your grinder.
Shh, Herb. Allow me to walk you through the process. First, attach the grinder to the bench securely. Some grinders have a C-type clamp, and others bolt directly to the counter, which is generally more suitable if you are preparing a larger animal. Keep in mind that the traditional hand crank grinders tend to drip DNA out meat juices, so place a bucket or some other container underneath them so that you may contain the evidence, not make a mess while you grind. Prepare the meat for grinding. First, remove the skin and any jewelry.
Grubby, why you say jewelry, Grubby? Meat's not supposed to have jewelry on it. It's always scary when he's in the kitchen.
Then you take a sharp knife and you cut into the flesh. You want to cut it into approximately 1-inch cubes. And you want to disregard any hard bits of fat or tendon or overly connective tissue. And make sure to keep your fingers out of the way, as you want the meat to be prepared properly for grinding. You want to make sure that you have a combination of lean and fat. And as I said, remove anything you don't wish to grind into your food. Once you have sliced the flesh into cubes, put it into the freezer for a half hour or so. You don't want it frozen solid, but enough to add a certain firmness to it. The meat works best if it is a little firm before you put it into the grinder.
Hey, Herb, can you help us out a little with a bit of fast forward? Oh, yeah, Grubby, but if you ask me, I think I'll just fast forward all the way to the commercial. Jumbo's Fast Forwarders! Okay, it's later now.
Now that the meat has been chilled and is firm, take it to the grinder. Make sure your bucket is under the grinder and that your plate is under the housing so that it can catch the ground meat. Take the meat and place slice a few chunks into the grinder. Turn the handle and enjoy the feel of the meat being ground and torn into bits until it is forced out the other side. Continue to crank and thrust the meat into the grinder until it is gone and you have a nice pile of ground meat suitable for cooking and eating. This has been this week's Meals and Munchies. I hope you've enjoyed yourself. This program is brought to you in part by American Beauty Garden Center, now carrying Grubby Cup's potting mix. You're listening to the Grow with Grubby Cup show. I'm your host, Grubby Cup Stash. You're listening to us on dfzradio.com.
Your garden's looking far out. You must listen to dfzradio.com.
Hi, and welcome to Non-Specific Hydro.
Yeah, hey, I have a buddy of mine that was telling me about a great additive.
Okay, do you remember the name?
Yeah, his name's Steve. He's a good buddy.
No, the product.
No, he told me it was a super concentrated organic enhancer. Comes in a yellow bottle.
Well, it sounds like he's talking about Floralicious Plus from General Hydroponics.
I don't think that was the name, but he also told me it was a vegan bioplant stimulator that contained vitamins, plant sugars, amino acids, seaweed extract.
Yeah, that would be General Hydroponics Floralicious Plus.
I don't think that's it, man. He told me it was something like Dora Vicious Flush or something, and he said it was like an organic supplement that could also be used in vegging or flowering, and it was compatible with hydro, soil, and cocoa.
Yes, that would be General Hydroponics Floralicious Plus.
Oh, hey, man, I just remembered what it's called. It's Floralicious Plus.
Oh, good. I was drawing a blank.
Floralicious Plus from General Hydroponics. Ask for it by name.
We're listening to DFZRadio.com.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Grow with Grubby Cup show. I'm your host, Grubby Cup Stash, and you're listening to us on dfzradio.com. And now it's time for a Buzz of the Circle Table. Well, hey, Grubby, do you know why they call the city of Daggett? Daggett? Well, I don't know, Herb. Why? Well, because that's what his name is. Hey, Alfred, did you hear about the milkmaid that paid the bills with buttermilk? No, why did she pay with buttermilk? Well, because she didn't have anything to pay with but her milk. How long can a jackass stand on one foot? Oh, gee, I don't know, Sheriff. Well, lift your foot and let's find out. Woman, thou art divine. I wish I had one that I could call mine. I would love her in my heart. I would love her in my liver. And if she hurt me so, I would leave her in the river.
Crash, and now it's time for your moment of meditation.
Good evening. This is Alfred the Dungeon Keeper. I sit back like a corpse on a slab. Let every tension go from your body. And in with a good air. And out with a bad air. And in with a good air. With a bad air. And just remember, don't take life too seriously. You won't be getting out of it alive.
Hey there, Grubby Cup. I had a question for you. I wanted to make some compost, and I wanted to ask you about doing it before I did it, because sometimes I find it's better to find out about something before you try to do it, and then, other times it's better to just do it and then find out afterwards. But with the compost, maybe this will be one of those things where I should find out about it before I try it.
Well, compost is actually pretty easy to make at home as long as you have a little bit of space for it and a little bit of work you can put into it. If you have a 4 foot by 4 foot area or so in a corner of your backyard, you can do composting at home. It's simple, it's easy, and if you do it right, it doesn't smell.
Well, gee whiz, Grubby, I already heard that there are things like greens and browns and all that, and it sounds kind of complicated.
Well, not really. All they mean by the greens and browns is that in a brown substance, something like dry leaves or cardboard or that sort of thing, that's why we call them browns. They aren't all the color brown, it just, they tend to be. They have a relatively low nitrogen to carbon ratio. And what this means is that they will decompose slowly.
Well, gee whiz, Grubby Cup, then that makes it sound like if you had a big pile of leaves or just a big pile of browns, that would take a longer time to break down. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying, Herb. The browns are added whenever you want to slow the process, or, if you notice it's going anaerobic and it's got a little bit of a funky smell going on to it. Now, along with the browns, you're going to need what are known as greens, and that just means that they have a higher nitrogen to carbon ratio. And greens tend to decompose faster. In fact, it's part of the issue is that things that are considered green are the things that if you left them in a pile, they would tend to go funky. They would tend to start to, rot.
Oh, I see. So you put in some browns to slow down the greens, and you use the greens to speed up the browns.
That's pretty much the size of it. Now, by weight, the ratio that you're looking for is something like 2/3 greens to 1/3 brown. But by mass, or by shovelful, so to speak, it comes out closer to even because browns have a tendency to weigh less than greens do.
Well, gee, Grubby, what are some examples of some greens?
Well, good sources of greens are things like lawn clippings. Not that I'm a huge fan of lawns, but any of that green leafy material that's going to break down and help speed up the browns and turn into compost. Oh, I see, Grubby. Well, once you get your browns and your greens together, is there any particular magic you need to do? No, not really. That's one of the beauties of composting is that sooner or later it tends to happen whether you mean it to or not. What you do is take your greens and your browns and mix them together, and quite often it works well if you've got an open bottom box that's about 4 foot on the side. You can make them out of wood pallets. You can buy plastic ones. And you mix them together, and you want to keep it moist, about as moist as a well wrung out sponge, and eventually it will break down and turn into compost. Why, Grubby? Does it take a really long time to make compost? Well, that kind of depends on how well your mixture is balanced and how wet you keep it and how often you turn it. If things are going really well, what will happen is the bacteria and the microbes in that inside will actually heat up and make what's known as a hot compost pile, and they can convert the plant material in that into compost in a couple of weeks. Even if you don't have that ideal situation and you don't get it to heat up, it'll still turn into compost. It'll just take longer. That's what's known as a cold compost pile, and that can take months. Or if you've got it really out of whack, it can take years. But, by and large, a hot compost pile will get you compost very quickly. But a cold compost pile will get you there. It just may take the better part of a season to get it to be mature. Well, hey, Grubby, how do I know when your compost is done and ready to be used? Well, basically, you can tell that it's ready to be used for one thing, it'll be cooled off if it was a hot compost pile, but for another, if you scoop up a handful of it, you shouldn't be able to tell what anything was. The pieces should be digested and chewed up and small enough that you can't tell what was part of a leaf or what was part of anything else. It should be, unidentifiable, brownish goodness. Oh, I Grubby, thanks. And that makes a lot more sense than taking it and then paying somebody to haul off your compost stuff and then going and buying it and bringing it back. You could just cut out the transport fees and the extra expense and just make the compost at home right from the stuff that you had to have hauled off. That's what a lot of folks do. And like I said before, if your compost isn't, it's running slow, it's not being very active, then make sure that it's moist enough. And if it's moist enough, then add some greens. On the other hand, if it's going a little too well, if it's starting to get a little bit of a rotting smell to it, or if it's heating up too fast, then you can add some browns to it. You can add some high carbon things to it and slow that down. And keep in mind, in composting, if it's running too hot or running too cold, either way, give it a good stir. Compost really likes to be stirred. Well, gee whiz, Grubby, thank you very much.
The Grow with Grubby Cup show is brought to you by, maybe it's just curious,
Grow With Us Hydroponics. If you're in the Rhode Island, Warwick area and you need some hydroponic supplies, stop on by at Grow With Us Hydroponics. Tell them Grubby sent you. Speaking of the Rhode Island, New England area, if you happen to be in the Rhode Island, New England area, stop off at Grow With Us Hydroponics. Home and Hydro, or Three Guys Hydroponics, all of which are very fine stores in the Rhode Island area, all of which are carrying Grubby Cup's potting mix. If you are in New York, make sure to stop off at Harvest Moon Hydroponics in Buffalo and in Rochester.
Big Bubba Bob's Bait Shack. Don't forget to check out our meat. We got bacon barbecued brisket. Travel provided by 1 foot in front of the other travel. Put 1 foot in front of the other and repeat as needed. Accommodations by Couchsurfing USA.
You're listening to the Grow with Grubby Cup show. I'm your host, Grubby Cup Stash. You're listening to us on dfzradio.com.
We're listening to DFZRadio.com.
DFZRadio.com.
Hey there, everybody, and this is your pal, the Wizard, and I'm here to remind you that the Heavy Tea Grow Show is on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. The Beer 30 show is on Mondays at 5:30. On Tuesdays is the Doofer. You get a Girl in a Garden at 5 p.m. and Grow with Grubby Cup show at 6. Make sure to tune in to DFZ Radio for all your bizarre, weird, and odd programming.
Botanicare is proud to introduce a revolutionary 3-part nutrient system that is the culmination of over 15 years of research and development. The Kind Plant Nutrient System. Designed by leading plant physiologists, this is the most versatile, effective, yet easy-to-use plant nutrient system ever created. It all starts with Kind Base. Kind Base contains nitrogen and calcium, but no trace minerals, magnesium, or sulfur. By placing those nutrients in the Grow and Bloom formulas, you have greater control over how your plants grow in your medium of choice. Using coco coir or RO water, just add more base to increase calcium levels. Growing in clay pebbles or rock wool, then just reduce the amount of base to ensure the proper calcium level. It's that easy. Kind Grow contains trace minerals and a proprietary blend of all natural ingredients to help maximize root growth, reduce internodal spacing, and create a lush canopy. Kind Bloom was formulated with the optimum phosphorus to potassium ratio. Your plants will have healthy branch and stalk development, accelerated flower set, and increased yields. Kind Bloom also contains magnesium to help improve photosynthetic efficiency, which is critical in accelerated growth environments. To put it more simply, Botanicare's Kind nutrient system is the only nutrient system that is fully customizable to your kind of plants and medium. Botanicare Kind Base, Grow, and Bloom. Fully customizable. Any plant, any medium. For more information, go to botanicare.com. Botanicare Kind. Make it your kind.
You're listening to DFZRadio.com.
You're listening to the Grow with Grubby Cup show. I'm your host, Grubby Cup Stash. You're listening to us on dfzradio.com.
And now for... a few words from the Irreverend Job. Hi there, friends. This is the Irreverend Job, and I'm here to talk to you. I'm here to talk to you today. I'm here to talk to you today because I have a story to share with you. That's right, brothers and sisters. I have a story to share with you, and that story is about yeast. Now, I know what you are saying. I know what you are saying. I can hear you there in the back. I know what you are saying. You are saying,
Irreverend, what could yeast teach us? Yeast is used for making soda, yeast is used for making bread, and yeast is used for making spirits and alcohol. Well, friend, I'll tell you something we can learn from yeast. If you take yourself a quantity of water, and you take yourself some sugar, and you take yourself some yeast, this is what happens. That yeast, it starts eating on that sugar, and it says times are good, and it starts reproducing and making more yeast, and then all of a sudden, it keeps going. It keeps going until there's more and more yeast and there's less and less sugar. And then, friends, I tell you what happens. One of two things happen. Either one, that the yeast will eat up the sugar until all the sugar is gone, and then those massholes of yeast will starve themselves to death. Now, that's one thing that can happen. The other thing that can happen is that because there is so many members of that yeast community, and because there are so many of them eating sugar and so many of them pooing alcohol, that what's going to happen is that they will wind up expiring. They will wind up dying because they are wallowing in their own poo. That alcohol that they poo out will continue to accumulate until it is too high of a level for the yeast to survive. Now, this property of yeast to use up every available resource until it either expires from a lack of resources or it expires from living in its own filth is just part of the natural order of things. It is the natural way that yeast will behave because yeast is stupid. Because yeast is a moron. It is not bright enough to figure out that if you use up all the available resources, that you will either starve or you will expire in your own filth. If yeast had a brain, if it had a thought, if it was an intelligent individual, then it could make some choices, and it could avoid that scenario and live to a ripe old age with its reasonable-sized family. This has been the Irreverend Job, wishing each and every one of you a beautiful day, and remember, don't be an asshole.
Thank you, Irreverend Job. And it's all meant with good humor, but if we don't start thinking a little bit more about how we're spending our resources and quit acting a bit more like yeast, we're gonna wind up in some really non-funny, serious kind of trouble. So keep that in mind. I want to thank everybody for tuning in again to this, our 72nd episode. And I have to admit, I really didn't think that this would go on this long. And if it wasn't for the support of gentle listeners and other industry folks, the show would just go away. So I want to take a moment and thank you for tuning in. Once again, if you're anywhere in the vague vicinity of the Upper Peninsula this weekend, I'd love to see you at the UPC Growers Cup and Conference. And I hope everybody out there has a wonderful weekend, whether or not you make it to the event. And until next week, this has been your host, Grubby Cup Stash. Grubby Cup Spaz. Grubby Cup Stash. You've been listening to us on dfzradio.com at dfzradio.com. Yeah. All right, until next week, peace, love, and puka shells.
You got some seeds to grow, he'll keep you in the know. Variety to claim, so baby, what's his name? He's a man to know. He'll make your garden grow. Grubby Cup's his name. He's the man who'll make a change.
Oh, wow, you heard the whole song, and you even heard the whole show and everything. Oh, thank you very much. You deserve a pat on your back. I'd give you a pat on your back, and I'd even let you pick on where on your back you wanted to get patted, because that's just kind of guy I am. This is your buddy, or the wizard. Until next time, bye-bye.
Your garden's looking far out. You must listen to dfzradio.com.